Hello, today we are rambling about IEB's paper 1 from November 2023, question 9. So, it has two parts to it. Let's look at the first. In the Cartesian plane below, a piece of rope is hanging over the top of two vertical poles A, B, and C, D. The key information: the poles remain vertical at all times and are 5 meters in height. The horizontal distance between B and D is 12 meters. Point E, with coordinates 1 and 2, represents the lowest point on the rope. And the first question says, if the shape of the rope between the points B and D is modeled by the equation y is equal to a times x minus p squared plus q, then determine the value of a. Okay, so they're telling us that this portion of the rope is a parabola, and they have given us the turning point of that parabola. They told us the lowest point is at 1 and 2, and we know that if we are for a parabola, this is how the turning point is encoded in the equation of a parabola. So that's the first part of it. Another way to think about it is that for your very original parabola, the turning point is at the origin. So in order for the turning point to go from there to here, it is a parabola that has shifted up 2 units and to the right by 1 unit. And we know that to shift up, we add 2, and to shift right, we subtract 1 from the input from x. So that's another way you can think about it. Okay. Oops. Oh no. Don't take away my highlight. Thank you. Right, and we need to figure out what A is. So we need to, figure out another point. So this is where the information they've given us, this bit of information comes in handy. We know that a turning point is the axis of symmetry of the parabola passes through there. So if you knew that there's a point here which is 0 and 5, and the distance to the other point that also has a y-coordinate of 5 is 10, right? Well, if they told you that that distance is 10, then you would know that, okay, this x-coordinate must be 10. Or you can, sometimes a question will be phrased in such a way that it allows you to use the fact that, okay, if this is 10 units, then we also know that this is 5 and this is 5 because of that symmetry, the mirror image. So let's see how we can use this fact over here. So we're told this whole distance is 12, right? So let's imagine our axis of symmetry coming down here. Okay. So what we know is that this gap over here will be 6 meters, and this gap over here will be another 6 meters, right? So that means that the x-coordinate of D is going to be 6 away from 1, which is 7. And we've been told that these guys are 5 meters above the ground, which we are taking to be kind of the x-axis. Well, and they've indicated that as well over here. So this would be 7 and 5. And the coordinates of B will be 6 less than 1. So 1 minus 6, which is negative 5. And the y-coordinate will also be positive 5. So we can use either of these points to figure out what A is. So let's just go ahead and do that. I'll use D because I love positive numbers. Sub in D, whose coordinates are 7 and 5. So then we have 5 is equal to A times 7 minus 1 squared plus 2. So 5 is equal to A times 6 squared, which is 36, plus 2. Okay, so we can then minus 2 on both sides. So that will be 3 is equal to 36A. Then we can divide both sides by 36. So then we have A is equal to a 12th. Okay, so let's just double check with the memo. And we are in agreement. A is a 12th. And of course you could double check by subbing in this point and seeing if everything still works out as expected. Okay, so on to the next part of the question. I'm just going to start by filling in what we know already. So we're told that E is 1 and 2. We know that the coordinates of D are 7, 5. This is negative 5, 5. And we now know that the equation of the parabola is y is equal to a 12th x minus 1 squared plus 2. Okay, and that is specifically for this part of the rope. Okay, so now the next question says, if pole CD is shifted to the right, okay, then what should the horizontal distance between the two vertical poles A, B, and CD become, so that the value of A is 1 over 100 and the lowest point of the rope is 4 meters above the ground? Okay, so I mean, right off the bat, I don't really know what to do. So I'm just going to draw a picture of what they want as an outcome. So A is going to remain as it is. So this is A, B, and we know that B is negative 5 and 5. And CD is going to shift. So originally it was somewhere here. Okay, so that's the original CD. But the new CD is going to be, that's a lot taller than the other one. Okay, right. So this is now CD, which will have a new X value, but the Y is still 5. The pole is still 5 meters high. And we are told that, okay, so we don't know what the new distance between them would have to be. Okay, so this is an unknown distance. Let's call it D meters. And the parabola, the A is going to be smaller than the original one, which means that it's going to be flatter than the original parabola. And the lowest point of the rope is going to be 4 meters above the ground. So the turning point will no longer be, well, we don't know what the X will be, but the Y will be 4. So let's just say, don't want to do it in another color. Let's just say the parabola will be something like that. I don't know what it is about me and wanting to go over something twice. So it's not immediately clear where the turning point is. It's very ambiguous. Okay, but the new turning point will be, let's just say xt, and 4. And by the way, this xt will just be what's in between negative 5, or not in between, but right in the middle of negative 5 and whatever the x-coordinate of d is, the new x-coordinate of d is, the average between those two, that's what the x-coordinate of the turning point will be. And we're told that also, as a sidebar, the new a needs to be 1 over 100. Okay. And so okay, so let me just kind of map out what's going on. So on the one hand, the turning point will have gone up from 2 to 4, but we're not actually moving the setup up, right? So these poles are still very much 5 meters long. Let me just think about what I'm trying to say here. So what I'm trying to say is, for instance, the point -5, 5 has not changed. Okay, what I'm trying to establish is, has the parabola moved up? So let's just think about this. If you change the a, does that move the parabola up? So I just need to play on the side here, and this might be immediately obvious to someone else, in which case I apologize. My instinct is, yes, it could change. Yeah, because if the x-coordinate of a turning point yeah, it does change. It does change. The parabola has been moved up, even though it doesn't look like, it just so happens that this is a common point between the two parabolas. But yeah, this 4 already indicates that the parabola has moved up by 2 units. Oh, man, I don't know why I'm being so doof. Okay, so the parabola has definitely moved up by 2 units. Okay, so I'm just going to write down here what's going on in the new parabola. So the new parabola is given by 1 over 100 times x plus something, and I'll come back to that something just now. And in fact, yeah, okay, we know that it's a negative thing because, well, do we? Yes, we do, because xd is going to be bigger than the original x-coordinate of d, meaning that this is going to be bigger than the original turning point x-coordinate. So we definitely have shifted the parabola to the right. Okay, so we know that this is going to be some negative number anyway. And we know that it's gone up by 2 units because original turning point was 2, right? And now the new turning point is 4. Okay, so we know that our turning point has gone up by, well, our graph has shifted up by 2 units. And I just wanted to come back to this guy because, right, we know that originally the distance between B and D, the horizontal distance between them, was 12. And now the new distance is going to be D, right? So that means that there has been an extension by, so if this is 12, then this last part is the difference between D and 12. I don't know if that's important. I don't know if that's important, so I'm just going to say it anyway. So if this is the original distance, which is 12, then this distance is going to be d minus 12. Who knows? Might be useful, might not. Okay, it doesn't necessarily tell us by how much the graph is shifted to the right, though. Does it? Does it? I don't think it does. Yeah, if we knew how much the turning point has shifted to the right, then that would be telling. But as is, it does not. Okay. So, and I mean, this is actually what they're asking us, right? They're asking us, oh, so we know that CD shifted to the right. What should the horizontal distance between the two vertical poles become, so that we have all these outcomes? So essentially, yeah, they're asking for D, but you know, if we can figure out by how much the graph is shifted, then we can figure out what D is. Okay. And by shifted, what do I mean? I actually mean shifted relative to the origin. We always talk about shifts relative to the origin. So this is probably not very important, actually, now that I think of it. So let's get rid of it until we need it. Okay. And what do we know? We know that, okay, the point -5 and 5, oh, I definitely need that to be a bit thicker, just a bit more confident. We know that we know that the point -5 and 5 lies on this graph, on this new graph. So that can, so let's just call this P for now. So that can help us figure out what P is. So we're going to do that. So sub in the point P -5 and 5. So that would be 5 is equal to 1/100 times -5 plus P squared plus 2. And I'm just going to keep this inside the squaring because it's gonna be easier to solve that way, as opposed to multiplying the brackets out and all of that exciting stuff. So I'm going to -2 on both sides. So that is going to be 3 is 100th times that. Then we can times both sides by 100 to, you know, it's the inverse of that. So then we've got 300 is equal to, so this times that will be 1. So it will be equal to that. Okay. Then we're going to take the square root, the square root, and we must consider positive and negative, and then use the context to decide which of them is relevant. So we've got -5 plus P is equal to plus or minus 10 root 3. And then if we then plus 5 on both sides, so that'll be 5 plus or minus 10 root 3 is equal to P, right? But now let's think about this. So we've got 5 plus 10 root 3 and 5 minus 10 root 3. So this is definitely some positive number. And this one, so the square root of 300 is between, what's the biggest square I can think of close to 300? So 256 is 16 squared. 17 times 17 is 289, and then 18 times 18 is 324, so that's bigger. So actually the next square after that is 324. right? So this is 17, and this is of course you just punch it into your calculator and find out, but hey man, where is the fun in not suffering? So basically you have 5 minus 17 comma something something something, so this is definitely then a negative number, right? And remember what P is, right? P is how much the parabola, this parabola that we're looking at here, has shifted. And again, remember that it's relative to the origin. Okay, not that that's very important right now, but anyway, how much is shifted relative to the origin. And we know that the x coordinate of the turning point is on the positive side of the x-axis, because the original parabola we looked at, right, this one, the x coordinate was 1, and then we're moving the pole to the right, so this is also then going to move out a bit further into the positive. So in a nutshell, we are fully expecting that P is a negative number, because remember that's how a graph moves to the right. So we can't have but P is negative, so therefore P is the negative option, 5 minus 10 root 3. Okay, righty. So we now have in full the equation of the new parabola is y is equal to 1 over 100 times x plus 5 minus 10 root 3. Remember that this is a negative number, so it's actually x minus something, right, at the end of the day. And then we said that the graph has moved up by 2 units. So that's the equation of the new parabola. And the question was, okay, what should the horizontal distance between AB and CD become? So we now know what the equation of the new parabola is, but we need to then figure out, okay, what are the coordinates of D, so that we can see how far it is from B. Okay, so let's do that. Find out the coordinates of D. And we know that D has a y coordinate of 5. Okay, so 5 is equal to 100th times x plus 5 minus 10 root 3 squared plus 2, right? And of course we know that we're going to get two x values. The one is B's x value, and then the other one is the D's x value. Okay, so again, minus 2 on both sides. 3 is 100th times this. Okay, then times by 100 to get rid of this guy once again, times this side by 100. So we have 300 is equal to x plus 5 minus 10 root 3 squared. Oh, actually, like we don't have to go through all of this, because the equation gives us the x coordinate of the turning point, so we could then figure out the distance, this distance, which would then give us this distance as well. But anyway, let's commit to the cause. So now we are going to square root both sides, so remembering to think about positive and negative. So x plus 5 minus 10 root 3 is equal to plus or minus 10 root 3, and then add 10 root 3 on both sides. So we've got 10 root 3 plus or minus 10 root 3 is equal to x plus 5. I don't know why I'm doing it step. Yeah, I should have just added the whole thing, moved the whole thing. So minus 5, minus 5. So minus 5 plus 10 root 3 plus or minus 10 root 3 is equal to x. Okay, so we said that. So we can see that, okay, the one solution is, so let me just say, in other words, x is negative 5 plus 10 root 3 plus 10 root 3, or x is negative 5 plus 10 root 3 minus 10 root 3, right, which is just negative 5. So this is the x-coordinate of b. We've seen that. Okay, so then this one, just a bit more simplified, is negative 5 plus 20 root 3. Okay, so now we can talk about our context, right? So we know that the x-coordinate of d is bigger than what it originally was. Originally it was, what, 7. So it doesn't make sense for us to consider a negative case, right? And also we already know that it's the x-coordinate of b, so it can't be the x-coordinate of c, right? So, but again, x is some positive number, so in this case the x-coordinate of d is negative 5 plus 20 root 3. And I mean, you can sanity check whether that is, I mean, it is definitely a positive number. I mean, a root 3 is 1 comma something something something, so 20 times that is something bigger than 20, and if you minus 5, you're still in the positive. So, and again, something you could just quickly check on your calculator, but now and again it's nice to just flex on your brain, you know. Well, let your brain flex on you. So that is the x-coordinate of d, and so therefore the horizontal distance, horizontal distance between xb and, well, not xb, the point b and the point d would be this guy, the x-coordinate of d minus the x-coordinate of b. So that would be negative 5 plus 5, so that cancels out. So you're just left with 20 root 3 units. Now, I am going to tell you right here and right now, this is the kind of answer I would get in an exam and immediately feel very doubtful and be very suspicious that I went wrong somewhere. But in an exam, I feel like, I mean, maybe you could just quickly glance over your workings and see if anything weird stands out. But I wouldn't agonize over that for like 10 minutes or something. I just make a note of it in my head to come back and just double check all my steps. Thankfully, I have the memo right next to me making this video, so that is going to be my double check. And of course, if I haven't gotten it right, we can do a triple check and just go over my workings and see where I might have messed up. Okay, let's have a look-see. Oh, and of course, it is not a horrible number. Okay, I already know what the mistake is. Ay, shakaramba, I know what the mistake is, and this is something I kept repeating, but I still fumbled. Okay. The mistake is that you don't, the shift is relative to the origin. Remember how many times I said this? It's not relative to the previous graph. Okay, so this is irrelevant content right here. So everything still stands. everything else still stands, I think. So this is just nonsense. Okay, so moral of the story is, remember that the shift is relative to the origin. Sing it in your sleep. So always think relative to the origin. So originally the turning point would have been at 0, 0, but we now know that it is at something else and 4. So this means the parabola has shifted up by 4 units. Okay, so now I'm just going to go through the tedium of correcting this everywhere. And let's hope that I don't get bored and start making stupendous mistakes. Man, you end up working with such nice numbers. But anyway, it's good to now and again expose yourself to horrible numbers and be comfortable working with them. So this is 5 plus or minus 10. Okay, so that would be you don't even need to have this whole little powwow in the corner. Okay, so that is which is 15, and that is negative 5. Okay, so that still stands. So P is equal to negative 5, negative 5, negative 5, negative 5, in which case it becomes so much easier to not go this route to figure out the coordinates of, well, not this route to figure out the coordinates of D, but to rather just look at the graph, figure out the distance of B from the new turning point, which will then give you the distance from the new turning point to D. But anyway, once again, we are going to stick it out. Okay, right. So actually, originally our original graph, and this is not plus 2, this is plus 4. Our original graph's turning point was at 1. Okay, so that means that let me not lie. Right, that does mean that the graph has shifted out 4 units relative to the first graph. Is that true? I think it's true. Yes. But anyway, that doesn't really tell us anything about D, because the old D has moved on to a different place. It probably has a higher Y coordinate. So yeah, knowing that it's shifted by how many units to the right, or that only really matters for the turning point, but for any other point, its Y coordinate has changed. I don't know if I'm making sense, and I'm too flustered to try and make any more sense. The point is, it's not a valuable point. So we move. Sure, the pain that I went through when people went through their own pain to make this question as friendly numbers-wise as possible. Right, so maybe there was a bit of something to my my feeling reluctant about how the numbers had played out. That's not a way to move through life, though. You shouldn't move through life feeling suspicious of answers that, come out looking funny. Life is full of funny numbers. What's going on? Oh, this was where I break it up. I broke it up for no reason. So this would just become plus 5 and plus 5. Okay, This is useless. Okay, so this would become 5 plus 10. Sort that nicely. So x is equal to 5 plus 10, or x is equal to 5 minus 10. So that is 15, and that is negative 5. And this is where we said, but wait a minute. Okay, but x is greater than 0 for the same reasons as stated before. So the x-coordinate of D would actually be 15. And so the horizontal distance between B and D would be 15 minus 5, the difference between 15 and minus 5, which is actually just a nice and cute 20 units. Well, and we're working in meters, so it's not units, it's meters. Okay, as usual, I hope that this has been valuable, especially in the making of the mistake and finding the mistake. I think the only thing that I can just emphasize and emphasize again, and really don't emphasize it and still fall into the same trap that I did. The shift, or at least just decide what your shift is relative to and be consistent. So I had in my workings thinking about the shift relative to the original parabola, as in the parabola we started out with, which itself was a shift from the origin. So I was working with that, and also working with the idea that, it's a shift from the origin. And B, it is, I think, often easier to work with the graph, thinking of it as having been shifted from the origin. So the turning point, the original turning point is 0, 0. What is the new turning point? Oh, that means that we have moved by this many units left or right and this many units up or down relative to the origin. I cannot stress that enough. And hopefully I won't fall into the same pit again in my life ever. Who knows?